Hello there, welcome back. Today I'm going to talk about my favourite Hammer films. I'm doing a 10 favourite Hammer films, but these are not in order. I'm not doing an order. And when I say favourite, I mean the ones I like more. It does not mean they're the best ones. Some of them aren't. I'm just going by the ones I have a soft spot for, or films I really like. I'm just going for favourites. It's like, you can have a favourites list and a best list. And this is my favourites list. I just think it would be more interesting to do that than just say, these are the ones I think you should think of the best ones. It's like, choose your own ones. It's all subjective, so I'm going for full subjectivity and just saying what ones I like most. So I've got a thing where I'm not going to have any series of films. I'm only have one from that series. So there's only one Dracula and one Frankenstein. There's no Mummy films, but I like the Mummy series of films. That's kind of one of the ones that's like, didn't make the list, but I like all of them. There's Captain Kronos I really like. It's not on the list either. But there's films that I really like that just covered, that just avoided the list and no more. You know, The Devil Rides Out I like a lot. That did not make the list either. So it's just there are a lot. I mean, I could go on for 20 quite easily, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to do 10. These are the 10 of my favourites for different reasons, and I'll explain some of the reasons of why I like them rather than trying to say these objectively why you should think they're amazing. Okay, so the first one is Vampire Circus. And there's a reason for this. This is the most sentimental choice of the whole bunch of them. As this was probably one of the first Hammer films I saw on TV late at night. This is the film that got me into Hammer. It's objectively not the best Hammer film. It really is not. But this is the one that was quirky. I enjoyed it. And it introduced me to what Hammer was in a way that got my attention and made me then look out other Hammer films. It's a lot more better Hammer films. But this one was the one that really got me into Hammer. So of course that has to be my favourite list. Even though it does have a lot of flaws, it's still a film I can happily enjoy watching. There are plenty of films, the Hammer films, that are not good that I will still happily rewatch. I mean, I like Scars of Dracula. It's not on the list. You know, it's not a good film, really. But I still have a soft spot for it. I mean, there's it's just there's certain ones you do just have that kind of thing for, even though it's not particularly great. Okay, the next one is the Quatermass Experiment. So my Quatermass film is the first one rather than the more renowned third one. I mean, Quatermass and Pit is the better film because it's a better Quatermass and the story's terrific. And the Quatermass Experiment does have a story that is compressed from the TV show, and you do lose certain things from the TV show that you in this film that you kind of miss. But I still really enjoy this film. And there's another one. This is the one that got me into Quatermass, this film, because I just loved the idea of 3 men go up in a ship, 1 man comes back, the doors are locked so they couldn't leave the ship. What happened to them? Just that simple idea got me hooked as a teenager, and it just was one of those mind-blowing ideas. Like, why did no one ever think of this before? This is great. And I realised that's an early plot within the space age, so it came pretty quickly. And it is wonderful. Even though Brian Donlevy is not the best Quatermass, I still enjoy his kind of brutality in the part. And I like Val Guest's direction during this time period. I think he did a lot of good stuff during this time period. And it's one of those ones I still have a real affection for. So even though I say Quatermass and Pit is the better film, I still have more affection for Quatermass Experiment. And I like the Quatermass Experiment story a bit more, personally. Even though I think Quatermass and Pit might be a slightly stronger story, I prefer the Quatermass Experiment. So that's why that one's here. Okay, we're going back to vampires, but it's not Dracula yet. I'll make you wait for Dracula. Kiss of the Vampire. This is one of the ones that is, I would say, is in the lesser known vampire films. You know, this one, Bride of Dracula, or Brides of Dracula. This is a little genre of Dracula films about Dracula that I really enjoyed. And I like this one most, because Brides of Dracula is part of the Dracula series, even though, because it's Van Helsing. Because the vampire is separate. It has vampires with mass balls. It has just lots of things. The plot itself is nothing new. It's a family of vampires, and people go into this family of vampires and have an escape with their lives, and nothing is new in it, but it's so enjoyable. It's one of those films you can sit back and enjoy, and it's got a wonderful atmosphere to it. I'm pretty sure Kubrick saw this film when he was doing Eyes Wide Shut, or he'd seen this film, you know, years ago and stuck in his head with Eyes Wide Shut, because there are parallels with the mask party, and the kind of perverse decadent party with the masks. I know that also came from the novel that it was based on, but you kind of feel that maybe Kubrick took a bit of a mood from this one as well. But this is a beautiful film. I really adore this one. I'd happily rewatch it any time. So now we're going to outside the horror genre, because Hammer did do stuff outside of horror. They're more famous for horror, but they did do some thrillers all through the period of the 50s and 60s when they were doing these other films, even the 70s. When they were doing the horror films were the ones that were getting an audience in, but they would try and expand and do other type of films. And Yesterday's Enemy is, I think, the strongest one. Again, directed by Val Guest, stars Stanley Baker, and it's set in Burma during World War II. And it's about a battalion trying to survive against the Japanese, and they're not quite sure what tactic they should follow. And they also have to figure out, are they been set up, are they not been set up? And it's just a really wonderful film about the paranoia. It's not just about the violence of war, it's about the paranoia of war and what it does to you, and what not quite knowing where to go or what to do in a situation. Having no set reasons what can do your soul. And also realising that the people who your enemy is today might be your ally tomorrow. So even though you're vicious, they fight each other now, that may change. So it's a wonderful film, very multi-layered, based on a play. It's really wonderful. I highly recommend it. It's on the Indicator box sets, and it's definitely one of the ones to see. I think Indicator now have just released it individually as well. It's one you really have to see. It is wonderful. Okay, now we're going to the Dracula choice, the actual Dracula choice. So this is my last vampire film of this list. Just in case you're wondering, there's going to be more. No, there's not. That's the last one. My Dracula one choice is Dracula Prince of Darkness. This is the most obvious choice in the list, I think, because it's just the best one. It just is. I mean, the first Dracula is terrific, by Terence Fisher. He directed a sequel as well, and this was his last Dracula film. And they kind of missed him, because he continued on doing a lot of the Frankenstein films, and his ways of framing it up, having the writers' ways of framing Frankenstein up, were always interesting. And Dracula never get the same treatment, because I mean, Fisher did Dracula, Brides of Dracula, Dracula Prince of Darkness, 3 really good films, and then that was him off the vampire stuff. And then you'd get like Dracula's Risen from the Grave, which was not that great, and then you'd get different directors going to try different things. You know, it's what I mentioned before, Scars of Dracula. You had Taste of Blood of Dracula. There was lots of stuff going on, but then you had the modern Draculas. But nothing was really as good as these first 3 Terence Fisher ones. He had a mood to his films that really worked, that were really lost as soon as he left the series, and it's something that's really missing. And this one's just great. 2 couples related by blood are travelling through Transylvania. They get stuck and end up at Castle Dracula, and Dracula's assistant kills one of the blood to resurrect Dracula. Some of them escape to a local monastery, and all hell breaks loose as Dracula's coming after them. It's a simple plot, but just the style of it. I mean, when Terence Fisher was on form, his style really helped these films a lot. He really knew how to build, even when things were not particularly, even when things were not happening like big melodramatic events. Just someone walking through a corridor, he knew how to build that to suggest something bad's coming, and just the build of the atmosphere throughout the films, from the highs to the lows of highs of the action to the quiet moments that are as people are recovering. They all have this great mood to them, this great fairy tale element to them. They're just wonderful. And this one's just my favourite. It's just so good. And it is in 2:3:5 ratio, so it's the epic Dracula. So this one is beautiful. Now we're going to Plague of the Zombies, which is my next choice. It's just great. I mean, it's a zombie film. One of the few. I mean, Hammer didn't do zombie films. I mean, Val Lewton had done a zombie film. I worked for a zombie. A lot of exploitation directors done a zombie film, and this came just before Night of the Living Dead, which changed the zombie film. I mean, this was that supernatural thing of the zombies being used as slaves in an English mine by a corrupt lord who is using the zombies as cheap labour, and he's a total scumbag. It's wonderful. It's great because you have a villain you really hate. You want to see what's coming to him. You have decent heroes. Just an atmosphere to this one that's pure Hammer. John Gillian directed it. You also made The Reptile, which is also an excellent film at the same time. These were made back to back and went out with Dracula Prince of Darkness and another choice that's on this list coming soon. So yeah. So these are great films. So I'll just go straight to the other film. The next choice is Rasputin the Mad Monk, made at the same time or back to back by Terence Fisher with Dracula Prince of Darkness. Some of the same cast, and it's wonderful. Another great Hammer film. Historical subject. Christopher Lee is Rasputin the Mad Monk, and he really goes for. It's a really physical performance that's wonderful. The supporting cast is wonderful. This atmosphere, it's just so much fun watching Christopher Lee, who normally got the stoic characters, playing Dracula, playing a Frankenstein monster, just play a monster. Now he's playing a monster who's crazy and weird and manipulative, and he's chewing all the scenery in this film. It's just so much fun. Plus Rasputin's such a fascinating figure, historical figure, that it's nice to see someone like Christopher Lee approach him. So, yeah, that Rasputin Mad Monk is amazing. It's just so enjoyable. I cannot recommend that highly enough. Okay, next I'm going to the Gorgon, which is one of the kind of lesser known Hammer films. Stars Peter Cushing and Barbara Shelley, and it's great. I mean, you can spot the twist coming. That doesn't matter. It's just a build up to the revelation that really works. Again, it's a mood film. It's just like you're enjoying watching the mood of this film. You're enjoying being in the characters of this film. You're enjoying the sense of dread of things are going to go wrong. And it's just really enjoyable. It's like one of those ones that's like, you go in roughly knowing what to expect if you've seen some Hammer films, but it delivers everything you really want from this kind of idea. It just delivers totally. I mean, it's not one of the more famous ones in this series, of films of Hammer, trying different types of mythological or different creatures like a werewolf or something like that. It's not even as famous as Curse the Werewolf, which had Oliver Reed in it, but I like that film more. It just feels more interesting to me. You have a female protagonist as well, which is unusual, and you've just got just a lot of fun acting and fun atmosphere. So the Gorgon definitely gets my vote as one of the more interesting Hammer films, one of my favourites. Next, we have Demons of the Mind, which is a Christopher Wickling script, made in the 70s. It's a weird one. It's hard to explain this one. It's one of those ones I saw in the Hammer. There's a Hammer 20 box set that came out years ago, and it was just this box with all these Hammer films. And you'd get some really good Hammer films on DVD, and you'd get some of the weird ones that they didn't know what to do with, so they put in this box set. And this was one of them. And it was just wonderful. It's just one of the really cool late Hammer films when Hammer didn't really know what the market was anymore. It had been changed so much from Night of the Living Dead and The Exorcist and Rosemary's Baby. So we're trying different things. So they tried Captain Kronos. They try this. They try Blood from Mummy's Tomb. Just weird films. They tried some films that shouldn't have been done, like the modern Draculas. They tried them too. But this was one of the experiments that really worked. It was really wonderful. It's all about psychology and how strange it can be. And I'm not explaining more, just go watch it. It's just wonderful. It's just odd. It's just one of those things that are made when a film studio is just trying stuff. Right. So the final choice is my Frankenstein, film, for my favourite Frankenstein film. And it's The Revenge of Frankenstein, which is the second one in the series. Now, there are a lot of interesting films in this series, because this is one Terence Fisher did most of them. He stuck with this one. This became his film series where he kept on work doing this. So, The Curse of Frankenstein is a good film, it's not great. I actually like the sequels more. Some Revenge of Frankenstein. And there's some wonderful stuff like Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed, Frankenstein Created Women, Frankenstein the Monster from Hell. These are all Terence Fisher films, and they're all excellent, they're all wonderful. But Revenge is my favourite. And there's no real reason. It's about a guy who this time the Frankenstein monster starts out like handsome and starts to degenerate as he goes, and starts to get crazier as he goes. So the monster's interesting. Frank himself's interesting, played by Peter Cushing again, acting as if he's a person who's helping the poor when he's really just a scumbag as usual. It's just wonderful. It's one of those ones where everything can click together. It's not the most unique one. I think Frankenstein Created Women is the most unique one. But this one just worked. Everything kind of worked in it. Even though it wasn't the most original one, it just worked. Everything just came together. At least for me, this is my favourite one. Even though I know there's other ones that might be more interesting, this one's one I'd probably just watch. Of any Frankenstein, you just want to watch this for, to sit back and enjoy it, it would be this one. There is one or two in the series that were non-Terence Fisher. There was Evil of Frankenstein by Freddie Francis. I don't like this one that much. I think it's the dullest of the Frankensteins. And Jimmy Sangster did Horror Frankenstein, which was a reboot with Ralph Bates. I enjoy it. It's a black comedy more than a horror film, though. It's not great, but I enjoy it. Because I tend to like the Frankenstein films. But Revenge, I think, is the strongest one. It just delivers. It's also an indicator box set. It's an individually an indicator. It's one that's really worth getting. So that's my top 10 or my favourite 10 Hammer films. I hope this will encourage you to go and see some of these films. They're all excellent. And there's tons of other really good Hammer films, but those are the 10 I like the most. So, hope you enjoyed this video. That's me for now. Right, bye.